Courage precedes confidence. You must act before you have the courage, before you have the confidence. Don't wait. Women, if we wait, we'll never get to those corner offices like we need to, and we will not change the conversations that are happening and the decisions are being made.
Friends, and welcome to Iconic Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Chaitra Vedulapalli, President of Women in Cloud. This podcast is for founders, executives, investors, and change makers who are done playing small and ready to lead movements that actually matter. Every week, we don't just talk about big ideas. We unpack lived experiences, pivotal moments, and real systems behind leadership that democratize access and creates lasting impact. Because here's what I believe: prosperity should be the default, not the exception. Together, we are here to democratize intelligence, elevate how you lead, and shape the next 50 years of inclusive innovation. So let's begin. Today, I am joined by Jane Boulware, board member. Today, I'm joined by Jane Boulware, board director, global business executive, author, speaker, catalyst, worthy and prizes. And if you care about overcoming self-limiting beliefs and action that keep women from succeeding personally and professionally, this conversation is for you. No one expected Jane Boulware, the scrappy girl from rural Iowa, to become a leader of billion-dollar business and rare C-suite Microsoft executive. Born the fourth of 5 kids in a one-bedroom house, Jane was unwilling to let circumstances, fear, or others define her. But here's what matters to all of us. Jane's journey shows that success isn't about what others expect, but about what you make, claim, and give of what you have. Her work and her book inspires people to rethink what's possible, encouraging women to fear less, show up, stand up, and lift themselves and others. What pulled me into this conversation isn't what Jane built, it's how she carried the weight of scale, influence, and legacy as it grew. So welcome, Jane.
I'm listening so intently. Wow. Thank you for that kind introduction. And it's an honor to be with you today. As someone who is changing the life of billions of people, it's a joy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. So excited to have you today. I want to actually understand your origin story. So let's rewind to the origin. You have shared the story of your pickle bucket in your book, this idea that your worth was measured by everything that you could put into degrees, achievements, proof that you made it despite the odds. So take us back to that chapter. What did that shift from you, from proving your worth to truly believing you were enough?
Oh boy. So just to frame the context a little bit, I grew up in a household that didn't have much room or much money. So each one of us 5 kids got a 5-gallon pickle bucket. Mine was from Max Cafe, and Mom wrote Jane across the belly of the pickle bucket. And we shoved it under the rafters, and that bucket was our personal space. And I was absolutely committed to filling that bucket with every one of my ribbons and awards or things that were special to me that proved that I mattered. Because as the fourth of 5 kids, it felt as though I needed a way to say I was important. And eventually that pickle bucket got chucked when my dad cleaned out the attic. But the concept of keeping track of the things that I did, the things that I earned, the gifts that I received, the milestones, degrees, etc., that I achieved as a way of proving my worth stayed with me literally for decades. It really did. And I think that's something we all do, is we think that our self-worth and our self net worth are one and the same. And it took me a long time before I started to realize that it wasn't what you have, but what you give of what you got. That really is the true measure of a person. And slowly but surely, I started to appreciate that there was not a Tiffany's gift or a bank account or a milestone that could be achieved that would give me any more worth or take away my worth. It wasn't something that anyone gave me. It wasn't something I had to earn. It wasn't something I had to receive. It was in my birthright. And boy, that took me a while of maturity, but also overcoming a lot of the voices and choices in my head, some of which were from others, some of which were my own, before I realized that I didn't need to chase those things and find that confidence and that joy and that courage within myself. And when I did that and started being external facing versus internal facing, then I realized that I was using the yardstick to measure my success that I liked, and that was me.
I love it, Jane. I had chills just listening to that conversation because there was probably an inner voice that told you something after looking at all the accolades of what people say, but there was an inner voice that said something that you're worthy. How did that sound like?
That said I was worthy as opposed to unworthy.
Yeah.
And to be truthful, sometimes I still struggle with that. I can get caught up in the dumbass, as they say. The reality is I literally tell myself every day, I'm enough. I am worthy. I'm worthy of love, respect, of doing anything that I want. It's okay to make mistakes. And one of the ways that I knew I was comfortable with that is when I started using the three words that I think the ego can't say. I need help. I don't know. And when I started to use those words as appropriate, I started to create space in myself to acknowledge that I didn't have to be everything and I could open up to others. And it turns out I created the space for others to be able to enter into my life, to contribute, and to step in and step up for me and around me. And that is worth. To me, that is worth, because that's when people, 1 + 1 = 3. So what did it feel like for me? It felt a release of having to feel like I was doing it by myself, because it wasn't about it. It wasn't even about doing. It just was.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jane, I had that kind of a moment somewhere around in my 40s, actually, not even in my young. I did everything, but there was something that I had to look at myself and said, it's enough. I'm worthy. And when that shift happened, my attitude, my confidence, my presence, everything shifted. So I know how powerful it is when you can say, I'm worthy every single day
Yeah.
to yourself. And that became my mantra. But the way I look at it is I'm my best friend to my own soul. And that one was very powerful.
I like that. I feel like I grew up listening to the voices of what I can't, shouldn't, and won't do, right? And that fueled me, honestly, to either prove or to overcome or even just to move on. And I did realize at the point in my 40s, that wasn't about me. That was about them and their expectations and their comfort level and their not being comfortable changing the lens of the person they're looking at. I quit carrying their expectations. And that
I
felt
love
very
it.
good.
Yeah, I think that's leadership, right? When you can look inside and you can assess and you say, this is not mine, it's theirs, and this is yours. I think it changes completely how you look at the world. And I read your book, and you also taught something very powerful in leadership. Every time you meet with your team, you ask three questions. Teach me something new. What would you do if you were me? How can I help you succeed? And then you acted on it. Was there a moment when leadership shifted for you from having answers to asking,
Oh,
listening,
yeah.
and actually doing?
Yeah. The context again for that was I had been a pretty celebrated marketing person and pretty successful in the company that I worked at before Microsoft, Kimberly-Clark Corporation, where we worked on global brands and did amazing things. And I got lots of accolades and I felt pretty confident and comfortable. And then I came to Microsoft, where the currency was technology, mostly technology, and I was not technical. And as a result, I did not do well in the roles that I had been put in as a corporate vice president, one of the most senior levels in the company. So I was offered a position leading the Windows operating system, operations, marketing, and business. And I didn't know a thing about operating systems. I literally went to howitworks.com to look up operating systems. So when I went and met with the team, I could fake it and I could pretend and I could be puffed up and hold them at bay because otherwise they would see how afraid I really was, or I could be honest. And that's what I was. I decided, and that was when I went back to the type of leader that I was very early in my career, and earlier in my career, and what got me even to Microsoft. And I told them, honestly, I don't know about the business. I don't know about the partners. I don't know what you would traditionally know walking in this room. Will you teach me? Will you support me? Will you teach me what I don't know? Will you tell me what you think I should do? And I will listen and act. And will you help me understand what is necessary for you to be successful so I can be there? If you take the arrows, I'll take the hill. But I am good at building businesses because I knew what I was good at. And I'm really good at identifying talent and helping people be better than they think they would or should be. That's when my leadership style changed. To listening and acting and recognizing other people versus going from me to we. And in the process of doing that, people came out. It was so powerful because not at first, because at first they're like, yeah, we've seen this before, like rinse and repeat. Somebody's going to talk. You just pull the string. No. What happened is people did have a lot of good ideas. They did have solutions they didn't think people would listen to. They were collectively very experienced, very good at what they'd done, but they had never really gotten the chance to express it. And I don't think that was unique to my team. I think that as a leader, good leaders don't try to showcase and enable their own success. They find what's great about the team and the individuals, and they enable that in others. And when that happens, it's a force multiplier because you stop worrying about yourself and you start thinking about what's needed for them to be successful. How do you remove those barriers to success? And it's not only a 1 + 1 = 2, it becomes a 1 + 1 = 4, 5, 10, because it becomes this force multiplier that others want to be involved in. And that is what happened on our teams. And that's what happened in those businesses that I was lucky to be involved in after I made that leadership shift.
And how did you learn about going from me to we? Did somebody give you a framework or did you go about reading about it? How did that happen, going from telling somebody to asking and listening?
It happened when I was 15 years old and I was working in the cornfields of Iowa. And I was detasseling corn, which I needed to do because it paid really well, even though it was a really hard job. And I had a crew of 8 to 10 people, kids that were basically my age. And we were working from sunrise until mid-afternoon when it was too hot to be able to work. It was every day as hard as you could in this window where you had to get this work done. And the kids I was working with were working for things they wanted, not things they needed. I was working for things I needed. And when things got ugly, they were going to quit. And I tried to bribe them. I tried to inspire them. I tried to threaten them. I tried all kinds of things. And it could not overcome the fact that it was a shitty, terrible, difficult job and they didn't want to do it. And it was only when I was very vulnerable and I said, I need your help. I need this to go to college. I need this to pay my tuition for high school. I need this for clothes and all the things in my life. And if you quit, not only will I not make my contract, but I won't make the bonus and I'm stuck here. And it changed the dynamics of the team. And it went from being about me and what I needed and what I could do and what they individually were going to do to what we collectively could do. And they started working for me and for each other. And the slow became faster, and the fast started helping the slow, and we started doing things more that we didn't think we could, I didn't think we would do before. So not only did we make the contract, we made the bonus, but more importantly, I learned that when I opened myself up and stopped making it about me and enable others, and we create an environment of we, that's where the power comes in. So I learned it when I was 15.
That is amazing, Jane. That's at least anyone I have spoken to about you is they said is you always listen, you always ask, and you actually pull the answers from them rather than telling them what the answer is. So that's like the wisdom that comes from practicing and learning. And I also learned about that you were responsible to lead the Boys and Girls Club as a board chair during the COVID era. And I personally feel it was probably not very easy. Was there a personal leadership framework, philosophy, or a decision filter that helped you stay grounded when the stakes are high?
Yes. So again, the context was I had just become the board chair, which was for Boys and Girls Club. And I hadn't been on the board very long when they asked me to be a board chair. I think they were like, I wouldn't say they were desperate, but they did ask me to do it. And it was kind of a rinse and repeat job. It was like, this isn't going to be that hard. It's been, the Boys and Girls Club's been around for 70 years. You can't mess it up. Within months after taking on the board chair position, COVID hit. And all the communities, all the organizations around us, whether it was schools or everything shut down. And the challenge that we had is that we had thousands of kids, and our mantra is for those who need us most. And those kids had nowhere else to go. They didn't have after, because they relied on us for after school food. They relied on us for after school care, counseling, helping them with homework, etc. And many of these kids literally, when school closed, had no place to go. So the first time we met as a board, we're like, wow, we don't even know what COVID is. This is very scary. How can we put our people at risk? We got to close it down. It's a no-brainer. It's what everybody else was doing. And then there was the question I asked, which is, if we are, what will happen to these kids? Literally, if we're here for those who need us most, what will it be? What does it look like? And the conversation shifted gears. What would it look like? How could we? What would it take? What are the barriers? How do you overcome the barriers? And it became a conversation of what if and how to, instead of why not and why we can't. And I will say, I happen to be the board chair, but it was the people in the board and their resources, their momentum, their conviction, their all of those things helped. They found help and provided help from everywhere. And so the framework I would say is a couple of things. Number one is we were very level agnostic. It did not matter if you were a billionaire on the board or if you were someone that was just at an entry level position, or you were literally somebody who just clicked open the doors and was minimum wage every morning at Boys and Girls Club. Everybody got to contribute to how we could make this happen, right? And that was super important. And the other thing we said was, we just kept remembering, if we don't do this, and asking ourselves the question, what will it take, instead of why we can't? And that became a really big deal for us. I think for myself, I've always believed that it's in doing the difficult things you couldn't imagine. Like we could not imagine staying open when everybody else was shut, but it's when you're doing you're doing the difficult things you can't imagine that you begin to imagine yourself differently. And we went from a handful of clubs now to 18 clubs. We now are serving 18,000 kids in our community every year. It's an amazing thing what's happened coming out of COVID because we were the place to be for them. But
Amazing.
really, it was about rallying the board and rallying everybody on it.
With the kind of leadership that you bring, Jane, this kind of impact just doesn't happen. It's really a lot of unseen work, and much of the leadership is very invisible. What's behind the scene work look like that is essential to the impact that you bring to the table? Take me through.
Just to be clear, it's never about one person. It's not about me, but I will say The thing that I've had to do that's been hardest for me, and I wrote down my stories. Let me take a step back. The year that I left Microsoft, I went back on my calendar. I asked my admin and she found there were 27 different people that I was either mentoring, sponsoring, having coffee with, whatever, directing, etc., meeting on the side. I was heavily caffeinated, lots of coffees. And no matter whether they were entry-level position or senior level position, almost every one of them had imposter syndrome. They felt like they weren't prepared. They felt like they weren't ready. They felt like they might get found out. They felt like they weren't as good as someone else because they were judging their insides by someone else's outsides. And they were using everybody else's yardstick to measure their success. And everybody's good at something. But but you have to figure out what you're good at and measure that. And so I wrote my book, Worthy. It's not a how-to but get to the corner office. It's a collection of stories of basically flailing. That space between saying yes to something and being successful, and the flailing in between. And I call that undoing my ums, because I think we're all born worthy and we ourselves. We say we're unworthy, unprepared, unqualified, unready, whatever that is. And so overcoming the uns is individual work that nobody else sees. Because when they're looking at you, they're seeing you nodding and they're seeing you articulate and they're seeing you knock it out of the park, because we only show to people that beautiful side of us, right? Nobody looks like crap and then goes online and does a video. Yeah, but anyway, so it's the unwork that I think that we need to do. We need to unwind what we tell us we're not, so that we can be bold and we can act instead of waiting until it's too late for someone else to get the job or get the position or do all those things. And I think that's the silent work behind the scenes no one else can do for you. No one else
Completely.
can say, you can say you're worthy, but unless you feel it yourself, I can say you're worthy, but only you can, your worth, that's why they call it self-worth, right? So that work for me was really, really important to be able to do that work. And that's frankly pickle bucket work, where you start to realize that your worth is, if you're fortunate to acquire some things in your bucket, it's what you make, claim, and give of what you got that really defines you, and I think is what we're here to do. So I always say it's show up, lift up, and show up, stand up, and lift up others.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's do a little bit of double click for people who are like trying to understand, oh, I love this concept. What does it look like on a daily and a weekly basis that they don't realize? What are the things they have to do to feel worthy? So give some ideas for them, Jane.
Oh, geez. One of the things, believe it or not, that I do is I talk to myself a lot. I do a ton of self-talk. I talk to myself before I get out of bed in the morning. And I talk to myself like I'm a separate person. And I even talk to my little girl. You are amazing. I even say this out loud in front of my husband. I'm like, I am amazing. That was pretty awesome. Or before I get out of bed in the morning, I tell myself it's going to be a great day. I am smart, I am capable, and I'm going to be able to handle whatever comes my way. And if something overwhelming happens, there will be other people around me that can help show me the way. And if not, I will find them. I literally tell myself before I get out of the bed. And before I go to bed at night, I remind myself why I'm grateful, what has happened to me that has been really that I'm grateful for. And that puts me in the mindset of receiving good things, expecting good things, and recognizing and acknowledging good things that do come my way. And it's, as women, we are typically likely to deflect compliments. We're to deflect things that we do. I am just going to say we are freaking amazing. Not only do we do oftentimes as women a really great job in the workplace, but we also manage oftentimes the home front. We're the ones that send out the birthday cards and prepare for the holidays and do all of these other things. That's not to suggest we don't have help, but the number of plates that we typically have on sticks, we don't give ourselves credit for. The other thing, and so I have gotten good at doing that. There's a McKinsey study that will tell you that on average, women underrate their performance in the workplace by 33%, by a third, versus men of equivalent jobs. Okay, same jobs. So a third, we undervalue by a third. And then on top of that, at performance reviews, women typically have 6 times more shoulds, like you are too this or too that, too assertive, too aggressive, not assertive, aggressive enough. Whatever those things, those words are, versus a men's performance review, which in and of itself is not great, but research will show you that Catalyst research will show you that women are 7 times more likely to internalize criticism than men. Men dismiss the criticism, women internalize it. And what that means is that we don't set ourselves up for success. So one of the things I would say in owning your worth is to recognize the work that you do, to give yourself self-praise, to say thank you and to write down when you do something well. Chaitra, do you have a folder in your inbox that says kudos or something equivalent, and you put in there really nice emails that you get?
I
Did you
do.
look at them?
I do.
Yeah.
And something that's very common between you and me, Jane, is the ritual in the morning and in the evening. And when there are days when I'm so exhausted, I will go back to my notes and I just read it just to give that self-praise, just to come out of a bad moment, because it's just a bad moment. It's not like my overall personality or personality of who I am. So I'm so glad that you took us through what your ritual looks like, because if the more we do affirmations with a very clear direction of how you need to celebrate yourself, appreciate yourself, and show up that you're worthy. No one needs to validate you. So that is amazing, Jane. Amazing, amazing.
That said, I will tell you that my girlfriends, my community, and I have a very vast, broad community of people. I just adore them. They're there for me. 30 minutes before, 45 minutes before we got on this call, someone called me and they said, "You sound a little like like a bouncing ball, Jane. I'm going to send you a 9-minute meditation I think you should do." I'm like, "Oh, come on." And it was awesome. And it's just what I needed. And so sometimes you can't recognize in yourself what you need or even your own achievements. And having people you care about that are honest with you and will tell you when you're not doing well or you're not living up to your own expectations, more likely will tell you when you are. That is worth its weight in gold. I do believe one of the key differences between men and women is that women have typically have amazing communities. And one of my favorite beliefs is together we can do what we could never do alone.
Agreed.
Full stop. I know many men who do not have or rely on that. And that makes me sad for them. And it also makes me wonder, how do you lead when you have to rely so much upon your own self? So I'm grateful for the force multipliers. And those are things that I do to help me stay centered, find my worth, recognize my own worth. And then I'm just going to say one other thing. I think there's a lot of women who believe that you wait until you're confident before you act, before you take a promotion, ask for a promotion, ask for the recognition, accept the recognition, because we're saying, I was really afraid and I didn't do that well. Courage precedes confidence. You must act before you have the courage, before you have the confidence. Don't wait. Women, if we wait, we'll never get to those corner offices like we need to, and we will not change the conversations that are happening and the decisions are being made. We must, as women, be bold, act, because otherwise it will be too late for us to influence what's happening in the world today. And Chaitra, I know you're all about that.
I try my very best, Jane. I really try to do the best I can. So, but today is all about you. So when you step back and look at your journey, what impact are you proud of?
I genuinely am proud of the community and the people that I've been able to work with. Many of whom are still friends. I'm really proud that later in my career, after I quote failed at Microsoft and then started leading in a different way, it was then I started to build, I think, the kind of leaders, women leaders who went on to do great things. They are leaders in other organizations. They are people of influence. Asha Sharma, who's now the CEO of Games, started on my team.
Oh,
Yeah, we hired her. I remember when she was a newbie. I remember her first day of work. I'm just really proud of, I want to be a catalyst because it's no longer what I achieve, it's what I'm hopefully able, and I can hopefully enable someone else to achieve. It's probably not a very good answer. I should probably get crisper at that, but I don't know. I
that's
can't think
okay.
about my legacy because I'm living it. I got a long way to go.
You are living every single day your legacy. And Jane, I want to connect few threads from your journey because you talked about moving from proving your worth to truly believing it and how to shift the mindset to how you see yourself and how you show up for others, whether it's asking what they need and actually delivering to creating the environments where the kids can hear I can instead of I can't. So your leadership is really rooted in helping others see their own worth. So from your own vantage point, what does the worthy leadership look like when it shows up in everyday decision for our audience who's listening today?
What does worthy leadership look like when it shows up in everyday decisions for the audience? Geez, that's like world peace. I think a worthy leader or someone that is, what that looks like to me is that when decisions are being made, they're reflecting the voices, inputs, skills, etc., of a broad group of people, regardless of their levels, regardless of their backgrounds, especially it should be inclusive of their backgrounds and so on. And that they're doing it with integrity, with genuinely the best intentions in mind. And that the leader isn't trying to put themselves first, but is trying to put their people first, and you're standing behind them between the nonsense that's happening and what they can achieve. I kind of look at the difference between a person that is leading as an individual who's trying to pretend to make the best decisions based on their experience and their knowledge, and they've got it all figured out. And I think Steve Ballmer used to be that way a little bit sometimes. You would go into a meeting with him and he would try to connect all the dots himself. And it was like math camp sometimes. And a successful meeting could be one where you didn't get caught up in finding a mathematical error instead of having the right conversation. So it's like this, getting like this, where you're trying to use all your brain power to come up with a solution versus this, where you're opening it up. A worthy leader says, okay, here's what the problem is. What do we do? And brings it all in and then brings it forward.
And in current climate, Jane, that's not happening, right? You're seeing everyone is shrinking, they're very exhausted, tired. So if I give you a magic wand, how would you scale this mindset that becomes part of our system, not just the individual? What ideas do you have for people to leverage?
I think we can create our own communities in the workplace. I really do. I think we can influence without authority. I think we can influence with authority. I think people will be attracted to individuals who are inclusive, even though that word's not possible, but that do seek the help, that do create a common goal, a common vision, a we versus a me mentality. A we will always win, and people will gravitate to we's because nobody wants to be doing this by themselves. It's scary.
Yes.
It's scary. And I genuinely believe that I'm speaking in a couple of weeks to 300 women. And if those 300 women start owning their worth and empowering themselves and influence up just one person or down one person, that will be a force multiplier. So can we change the world? I think we can. I think it just happens in small groups, and that is the momentum that's going to have to be made. Is that we have to stop thinking it's such a big job, I can't change the world. can change your world.
Absolutely. And even just individually, if I start changing, I can move the needle up, left, down. And that is powerful because now you have a place that you can control and influence. And Jane,
We
I
are
have
not
really,
powerless,
yeah,
not even a
exactly.
little. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you have a lot of control around you, and people don't realize that you have to start believing that you're worthy first to really take control of things that you can control on.
You know what's amazing to me about the book that I wrote? First of all, the fact that I'm here talking to you blows my mind, seriously.
I feel the same too.
I'm like, wow, this is amazing. But what the biggest, kindest feedback that I received, because it's just 50 stories, it's from through my life, is that so many people said, oh my gosh, I read it and I felt like it was me. You were talking about me, that I was you. Because there's that humanity between us. And I'm a pig farmer from Iowa, and there's someone that went to boarding school in Connecticut growing up. Our silverware came from the gas station based on how many gallons of gas you got, and they have China. It doesn't matter. We're all connected in so many ways. And I think when those barriers come down and we create that connection on humanities, especially on a common vision of something we want to achieve, the rest falls away. It doesn't matter where you're from, what gender you are, or anything else, but you have to have that seat at the table. And for women, that means we have to get over being afraid. We have to own that we're good enough, and we have to say, I'm going to say yes instead of no. Instead of no, I'm going to say not yet. Do I know how to do something? Not yet. Take a chance on me. Do you want this job? Is this job available? Yes, I'll figure out how to do it, and I will build the wings as we're flying. But I cannot wait until I'm ready, because it'll be too late.
Uh, Jane, I need to have a dinner with you because it is just absolutely amazing to get these insights on how you build yourself. Is there a question I should have asked you, but I forgot to ask you today?
Not that I can think of, but you're an amazing interviewer. You asked me some humdingers. The world peace question. No, except that I'm going to go back to saying the direction AI is based on where we've been. It's an algorithm based on history. And where we've been can't be where we're going. It simply can't. And the things that will interrupt that are people who have new perspectives, new ideas, new ways of thinking. It's not to disrupt or to disrupt, but not to get rid of what's been, but to build on it and to build bridges to a new and different and better way. We can't be afraid of that, but we also must step into that. And now is that time to do that. It is a pivot point that we're at. And I genuinely believe that. So women, I'm asking, begging for you to own your worth, to take those risks, and to step forward and not be afraid to fail. You may flail, but the L difference in flail and fail is learning, it's listening, it's loving yourself, and it's letting go. Go do it.
Jane, I got chills. And again, thank you for sharing your stories, your framework, and the real world and the real work behind it. So before we close, where can our listeners connect with you or support your work?
You can buy the book Worthy online by Jane Boulware. And I say that because all the proceeds go and are dedicated, given to Boys and Girls Clubs for scholarships. So Jane at jboulware.com, you can reach out to me. If you're looking for a speaker, again, let me know. I know this isn't a pitch, but again, everything goes to Boys and Girls Clubs. So it's easy for me to ask for people to support me, because in doing that, we're getting scholarship for young ladies and men, boys, for the future. But reach out, Jane at jboulware.com.
And I have one
Oh,
insight.
LinkedIn. Duh, I forget. I'm terrible with social media.
So everyone, please get connected to Jane on LinkedIn. She's the first one, like I would say, yes, let's connect and let's explore. But one of the insight I also want each of the audience to listen is, if Jane is coming to your town and doing a keynote, go and visit and be there in the audience, because you will be fired up, You'll be excited. You will know your own worth to lead in this current environment because we need each one of you. So if today's conversation resonated, make sure you subscribe to the Iconic Leadership Podcast. You can also explore the Iconic Leadership Assessment, watch the Icons movie, and join the waitlist of our upcoming Iconic Leadership book. And if this episode added value, can you do me a favor? Take a screenshot, tag me, tag Jane, and share it. That's how we know it's landing, and it helps us create more conversation for you. And if someone in your life could benefit from hearing this, someone who's at a turning point, building a business, and needs this message, this is the episode you need to send it to them. And one last thing, as a thank you for listening, I have a special gift. The first 10 listeners will be entered into a prize drawing to receive a free copy of the book during the launch week. I am Chaitra Vedulapalli. Thank you for tuning in. And remember, when we lead with purpose, we unlock prosperity for everyone. Again, Jane, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.